John C. Campbell Folk School is in the western end of North Carolina, and we've been here since 1925 making things. Well, we teach pottery, fiber arts, all kinds of ironwork. We also teach cooking, one of my favorite crafts.
That's very nice, Paula.
It's not college.
Perfect.
It's not art school. It's mountain life. And in the old-time mountain life, the music, the dancing, and the making of things, it was all together. Olive Dame Campbell was from New England, and she came to the South trying to find an alternative education that would help people learn things that they could use staying here on the farm. She came by one day to the country store, and there's a bunch of loafers sitting there. She said, "What are you carving?" They said, "Shavings." And she said, "Well, can you make some other things?" I said, "Well, yeah, we probably could." And so she would work with them, and they would develop carvings of animals that they knew well. And the folk school would help to sell them. In the Depression, this was a major opportunity. People could make a little cash by carving ducks and geese and horses, things like that.
We feel like we're standing on the shoulders of giants when we sit here and carve figures in the same room where the men and women of this community did many, many decades ago.
So you can control how much you want them to smile. The straightness of the mouth has to change.
I've taught here at the John C. Campbell School going back 20 years or so.
How do you handle that with your knife?
Okay.
There's a group of enthusiastic students.
And I typically carve down here.
And sure enough, we have a very good week.
Why is Harley Refsal important? Well, in order to really learn craft, you have to learn from a master, I think. And he brings thousands of years of Scandinavian tradition and heritage to flat plane carving.
I typically like to sketch a few lines on there first, so I know where it is I'm heading. I think I'll put his hands in his pocket.
I grew up in western Minnesota, a little town called Hoffman.
Put his nose about there. And
Hoffman had lots of descendants of immigrants from Norway, Sweden. So the whole notion of doing things with one's hands, everyone kind of did that.
Now this style of Scandinavian flat plane carving stems from the fact that these flat facets were there. And the reason was that one was typically carving just with a single knife rather than a whole arsenal of tools. What I'm doing is right in the same tradition that has been going on in Scandinavia a long, long time. People carved what they knew. I enjoy carving farmers and fishermen and folks that I just saw in everyday life when I was growing up and that I see around me today. But I also enjoy very much carving figures that are tied in with holidays. People who live in the far north have been celebrating the midwinter holiday, the solstice holiday, for time immemorial. People realized that the days were getting shorter and shorter. It was a time to create light and warmth inside the house because there wasn't that outside the house. And many of the same images that were part and parcel of the pre-Christian Norse mythology wound up as part of Christianity as well. I'm starting to get the head going now, and I think I'll give him wooden clogs. They go back a long way. One of the characters that harkens back to pre-Christian times is a figure that is referred to as the Nisse in Norway, the Tomte in Sweden. They're the people who are the Nordic versions of Santa Claus, or the bringer of gifts. I don't know what kind of a cap he would wear, probably some fabric of some kind.
The predecessor of the tomte back in pre-Christian times was often referred to as the haugbui.
Get some eyes in here so he can look back at us.
There was a strong belief that there was a little creature that lived out in the private cemetery on the farm. And that haugbui, or the dweller of the mound, embodied the spirit of the farm.
And this is sort of my rendition of a tomte or nissa with attitude. One that you didn't look at and say, wow, that's really cute. I mean, how friendly and cozy he looks.
There's a simplicity to Scandinavian flat plane carving. It looks so easy and it's so deceptively hard. So now I'm in my 4th year of trying. But I grew up in an era where my family was an aspiring family, and the worst thing that could have happened to us was to fall into the poverty of the handmade. Today, something that is handmade is one of the treasures you could have in your life.
Craft matters because people have this need to tell other people who they are and what they are like. It's kind of like a duck says quack, another duck says quack. We're identifying each other as the kind of people who make things and do things.